few weeks ago when I was scrolling LinkedIn, I stumbled on a viral post about a touching experience someone had while on their LDS mission, and as I'm wont to do in cases like these, was drawn to it like a moth drawn to an open flame. The poster in this case was Levi Lindsay, an entrepreneur and current chief marketing officer for a Utah company called Shift Global. I thought it was cool that Levi, who's got over 25,000 followers on LinkedIn, was so open about his mission experience, and his story clearly touched a lot of people. So I thought he'd be a great person to have on the podcast. Levi currently lives in Utah with his wife and daughters and served his mission to Arcadia, California from 2011 to 2013. In this episode, he joins me to talk about the duties of a chief marketing officer and the best steps for a young person to take to follow in his career footsteps, taking a chance on a mission, the role of faith in enacting miracles, and a lot more. All this coming up next.
I grew up in Bountiful, Utah, to Woods Cross High School. Woods
Oh, let's go. What
Cross.
is that, the Wildcats?
Yeah, Wildcats, yep.
Okay, nice. What year did you graduate?
We would play the High School Musical, like the We Are the Wildcats.
Oh, yeah.
They burned that song to the ground over there.
East High School is like, what the heck, man? That's actually our school.
Yeah. But we adopted it. What'd you ask? What year did I graduate? 2010.
Okay.
How about you?
2013. I'm from South Salt Lake, so Riverton.
Okay.
If you know that area.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I guess one thing I was curious about from your professional background is you've had several forays into entrepreneurship, which I'm attracted to. Like, there's a lot that's very appealing to me about it. I'm also risk averse, so kind of a contradiction there. But tell me, in your experiences, and I know you talked about this on some of these other podcasts, but what are some of the highs and some of the lows that you've experienced in your real experiences?
Yeah, I'm more risk averse now than I was. And that happens with starting a business. And it's funny, a lot of people talk about taking risks in entrepreneurship, usually in association with the upside, like, hey, I took a risk and it paid off. But my experience was taking a risk. It did pay off, but it didn't pay off in the way that entrepreneurs typically talk about it paying. Like, usually it's, I had this exit and I retired and I never worked again, or I built this huge business that's a household name. But the business itself failed, but I learned a lot and got to take that learning with me. And also it leveraged me into my next thing that I wouldn't have been able to do and I wouldn't be here without it. So I had a video production company for 3 years. We grew that to 17 employees, 6 figures in monthly revenue. And it was just a wild ride, a lot of fun learning. I say fun very sarcastically.
Well, I think it was on that lemonade stand thing. You talked about just being burned out, just a lot of hours, a lot of time, I suppose. Accountability, right? If you've got employees, it's like, look, if I don't do X or Y or Z, we don't have revenue, we can't make payroll, that kind of thing. And would you say that's kind of some of the heaviest parts of entrepreneurship?
Yeah, it's crazy, like waking up one day and saying, wow, I owe $60,000 a month to people and I'm making $1,000 a month myself. Like, it's just, entrepreneurship is crazy. Like, I think if I were to do it again, I would know to bring on a co-founder that can complement my weaknesses, or to bring on employees immediately that can help me fulfill my weaknesses.
So you did that all as a sole owner, sole operator kind of thing, as no partners or anything, that first business?
No, I did bring on partners. That was really part of the problem, and kind of our downfall in the end is not having operating agreements and disagreeing about a lot of things in the end. I don't know. Business partnerships can kind of be like marriages, and when you break up, it can be kind of like a divorce. Yeah. It's like splitting up assets and figuring out who's going to get custody of the kids. And honestly, that was kind of our downfall, was our business. But it was myself. I was actually his home teacher when I was living in my parents' basement in 2018. And then he was like, "Hey, I have this business idea." And I said, "Cool, let's do it." And I jumped on board full time and started building it. And then we brought on his brother-in-law because we thought, "Oh, cool, this guy's built a business to $1 million a year. Like, he's going to take us to the moon." He's a really good guy, but it was very naive of us to think like he was just going to solve all our problems. He ended up getting deployed to the military, and and then like my partner and I had very complementary skills, and so it just like finances kind of struggled, cash flow, like that wasn't our mindset. We weren't like spreadsheet people, and I don't know, I could go on and on about diagnosing the death of that business.
And I don't mean to make you relive that, but it is funny how
No, you're
people
fine.
always do say, you kind of want. I mean, we're gravitated to people that are like us in personality, right? We like people who are like us, but there's a
Yeah,
lot that's like you want people who are different than you because they have different strengths than you do and different personalities, which it's hard, man. If you're going about starting a business or hiring for a business, I think it's hard to choose somebody you're not like over somebody that are like and resonate with, but maybe that ultimately
100%.
pays off better in the long run. So interesting.
Yeah, yeah, it's funny. Yeah, and I've learned that like dealing with like operations people. I remember we hired a VP of operations at that business at Vid Army, John Strang, and at first I was just like, I don't know, I don't really get along with this dude. But that was just me being short-sighted, and then after I got to know him, I was like, this is one of the like, he's actually a genuinely good person to hang out with, and just a good, well-intended person, and kind of became a mentor for us. Um, and it's like in the future, that's who I would pick, is somebody who's got that operation mind and got that
Mhm.
level head. I love studying like the different personalities. I don't know if you've ever seen the DISC model, but like
Mhm.
DISC. I'm very much in the I camp, which is like impulsive, artistic,
Hmm.
creative, and I need C's, which are calculated, analytical personalities to help kind of balance me out. And that's how my wife is, and that's why we have a good marriage, is 'cause I like to spend all the money and make the decisions quick, and she likes to take a beat, do research, and then make a calculated
Yeah,
decision.
you need those people. I'll have to look that up. I don't know about the disc model actually, but we have one at my work. They call it business chemistry, and there's like a driver, guardian, pioneer, integrator, right? And
Mm,
it's very helpful to know, oh, this is what I am. And then when you're working with somebody, you're interacting to go, if they're like a driver, right? You're not like, wow, they were kind of like abrupt. They were kind of demanding. It's like, nah, don't worry about it. Like that's their personality, kind of changes
yeah,
your
yeah, and sometimes we need that, and like
yeah, interesting.
creates balance. It's like the Ninja Turtles. Not to geek out too much over this, but like Michelangelo is my Ninja Turtle, but that's because he's the eye. And then like you look at the Ninja Turtles, and one is a D, one is an I, one is an S, and one is a C.
Interesting. I actually haven't watched it, so some homework for me, but
Oh my god, Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant
I
Ninja
never got
Turtles.
into it.
My guy, what the heck are we doing? I guess 2000. You graduated a few years after
No,
me.
like my
Maybe you
peers
just
watched
barely
it. I
missed
just
the
never got
wave.
into it.
Oh
Yeah, I
man, what
know.
a shame.
I know I missed out on that. Did you watch the live action?
Yeah, I mean, they're
No good?
poopy. It's I mean, it's just weird. Like, there was, like, too uncanny valley. Not even Megan Fox could save that one for me.
Yeah, back in the Megan Fox heyday of the early 2010s, something like that.
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
good
so
time.
it was a good time. So you're working at shift now. You get a consistent paycheck, which is probably a welcome relief right now. You're a chief marketing officer. So if you've seen The Office, you know that episode where you've seen The Office.
Yeah, that we can say we've mutually seen.
It's so
That would really I'd probably hang up if The Office you
it's
hadn't
so
seen.
deeply embedded in our culture at this point. Like it's everyone knows everything about
It
it. But
is.
there's that episode where Michael asks Oscar to explain to him like a 5-year old what a surplus is, So I'll ask you
Yeah.
to pretend I'm a 5-year-old and explain what the role of a chief marketing officer is and what they do.
Yeah, in a B2B role that I'm in now, um, my primary initiative is one to create awareness for the company in general. But my like actual KPIs at the end of the day are to fill the funnel with qualified leads for sales to then work with and close. And to build systems and partnerships that continue to feed the business qualified leads for sales. Um, so it very hand in hand with sales, like, but in the past I've been in software and D2C, and so um, when it's like business to consumer, it's very much making commercials and working with paid to make sure your spend has the level of conversion that you need and to get into the psychology of your customer. And so uh at the end of the day, it's all about figuring out who you're selling to and how to find them and how to get them in the door. And um that's probably not like how a 5-year-old would probably want it
It's a
explained,
very
but
smart
I'm
5-year-old.
sticking with it.
So do you have a preference between doing B2B versus D2C, consumers versus selling to businesses? Seems like it's kind of significant difference in how you approach them, right?
For sure, and D2C is nice because it's really loud,
Yeah.
and it feeds kind of like, I love that you can make a piece of content, put it out there. Like, I love geeking out over organic social and paid social, and the mix between all of that, and making TV commercials and billboards.
Yeah, it's
Like,
kind of
that
fun
was
stuff,
just
right?
that was a f that was a fun time in my life. Like, that was kind of a dream, honestly, to do. And then B2B is nice, because you get to focus on relationships. And I love being just generally curious in people's lives, getting to know them, and not really having any agenda, just saying like, "Hey, let's get to know each other. If there's anything we can do to help and it's obvious, like let's go for it." But at the end of the day, I just want to get to know you and make as many friends as I can.
Mhm. You kind of become a bit more like a account executive, it sounds like, in that kind of a role where you're just managing the client relationship to some extent.
Well, and it's I don't really manage client relationships as much as partnership
Mm.
relationships or like, we're doing a trade show next week, and I'll get to meet a lot of new people and see if they are a fit for sales to talk to. And I get to go to a bunch of dinners and just meet new people at a dinner in Vegas and just say, "Hey, how are you? Here's who I am. Who are you?" And get to know them. And
Mhm.
it's, "Oh, hey, maybe Shift might be a fit for what you need." And
Mhm.
or, "Hey, just good to know you. And is there any value I could provide? Any intros I could give you?" And just taking a genuine interest in people, something I've always enjoyed and always will.
Yeah. So on the D2C side, when you did do some of those videos, whatever those marketing campaigns, do you have like a creative process to coming up with things, or how do you tend to have you understood yourself to ideate these kinds of things so that they get attention?
Yeah. The first question you ask is, "Who am I making this for, and why am I like, what do I want them to do with this?" If it's like, "Oh, I just wanna create some brand affinity through organic social, I wanna entertain them and just give them a little taste of, like, I want them to follow my account because I entertained them." That's different content than, I'm gonna build this piece of content because I want the
Mhm.
product.
Different call to
It's like
action, right?
being director, yeah, like, and being heavily salesy versus being heavily education versus being heavily entertaining. And the best marketing is done when you can converge the two and you can sell something while being entertaining. But not you can't always do that. And so sometimes, like in organic, you just kind of have to entertain, and people will follow you just because they like you and they like that you're an entertaining page to follow. And then, maybe 10% of your page is sales, but 90% of it is just keeping people entertained so that they continue to interact with you. And then on the paid side, it's like, um, when you're making content, I have a structure that I start with, and then I typically mold it depending on, like, I'll try to get as creative within that structure as I can, but it's usually what's the problem, catching attention, what's the problem, solution, demonstration, overcoming any remaining objections, and then a call to action. Because that psychologically, like, if I am looking for a new vacuum, because my vacuum just broke and I'm scrolling on Instagram and it says like, check out this new vacuum. I'm looking for a new
Mhm.
vacuum. Okay, let's watch. And then it's like, this vacuum solves this problem that your old vacuum didn't. And it's like, oh, okay, interesting. Or I'm frustrated with my current vacuum or whatever. And so it's just like it's finding the right person. And then people that aren't looking for vacuums, they just keep
Yeah.
scrolling. So it's that's why paid is kind of interesting. It's like you just find the right people and then kind of walk them through the sales pitch like you would in person. Like, okay, you need a new vacuum. Here's my vacuum. Here's what it does that's interesting. Here's a lot of people that have tried the vacuum and really liked it. Do you want to buy it? And so I would kind of make content within that structure but change it up, the order or how I presented that. But like that was kind of the basic elements usually for paid content.
So when you see commercials that are like either don't kind of follow that general flow or are just stupid, does a part of you just die inside just knowing that what a wasted money, wasted opportunity it is? I watch those and I think, how many levels of people in the bureaucracy of whatever insurance company approved this, like screened it, and they're like, I don't know, pass it up to the boss, you know? And he's like, yeah, it's good with me. And they put it out and it's just stupid. And they probably spent, as a marketer, does that just kill you?
Oh man, dude, I've seen people spend like a mansion's worth of money, like just millions of dollars on commercials where I'm just like, that was okay. It, I wish marketers, I don't know. The way I always think is like, okay, just because we can spend this money on this, like, should we? Like I don't know. I love. There's a Blink-182 music video that Blink-182 is like my favorite band ever. There's a music video called "The Rock Show" where they took the check from the executives. Here's your budget to go make a music video. They took the check and just made it cash,
Mhm.
and then just went out and like gave it to a woman to shave her head,
Mhm.
and like just started and like bought a car to like lift on a crane and drop it, and just they were like, we're just gonna blow this money. I've always loved that because it's like, and I think about this especially in this day and age. It's like, okay, is this really the most effective way to spend this money, or is it like what if we spent $1 million to like paint an entire building in Times Square
Mhm.
for an hour? Like, would that like just I don't know. I like thinking like that in marketing is and I like working with people that like to just at least question it. Like maybe we do end up just doing the $1 million commercial. But like let's ask ourselves, is there something that we could do that could actually like make history with $1 million
Yeah.
before we just go and blow it on an okay commercial that will get forgotten in a month?
There's a lot you can do.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard this. I'm gonna butcher it, but there's like a there's like a Stanford MBA class or something. If you know it, pipe in and correct me, but maybe I'm gonna butcher it. Their class was challenged to like they were given, I don't know, 5,000. It was like make the most, give them $5,000 and they're like, make as much money as you can with this, in a week or 2 weeks or whatever. And so people went out and tried to use different groups went out and tried to use that money to whatever, multiply it in some way. Is a trick assignment in a sense, right? Because one group said, okay, like there's really not that much we can do with this small amount of money. What is really like the value here? And I said I'm butchering it, but I'm pretty sure they said, well, the value we have is we're like a Stanford, graduate school of business class. Companies would want to come in and pitch to us. Um, I'm butchering it. Anyway, the point is
Yeah.
I'd have to look it up, but they did ditch the conventional mindset of, oh yeah, like here's the parameters you're supposed to work in, like go and follow the rules. And instead it's like, well, why don't we just shake it up a little bit, try something different? And I think you're right.
Yeah.
It does, often seems to be a lot more effective than just, like, another, like, "Liberty, liberty" kinda thing, you know? But who knows?
Yeah.
What do I
Well,
know?
and it is a risk, but I am just a big fan of at least, like, questioning the status quo before you move forward with it, and I think that's what often sparks a lot of really good marketing.
Yeah. So if somebody, teenager or early college kid, were saying, "I love marketing, I wanna become a chief marketing officer," what would you advise them to do to become that at that point in their lives?
There's really 2 points of entry into marketing usually, which is performance or creative. And so it's kinda determining which one you might like more, which is, am I more of an analytical guy? Am I more of, a performance mindset that just kinda likes dealing more in numbers? But some people are a mixture of the 2, um, but or am I creative where I wanna maybe make content and make commercials and be creative, and that's, like, really my strength. And then, um, you know, if you're creative, I would start creating, as a killer start point, like, make a TikTok channel and start making videos or make videos for brands or if you're, like, more graphically like a graphic designer, like, start making stuff for brands that you like without them asking to start building your portfolio, building your experience, and start exposing yourself to it. If you're performance, there's a lot of workshops that are very inexpensive. Like watch YouTube channels and they'll teach you everything you need to know about how to start running performance and then find a local dentist to run their ads and see if they'll let you do it. There's a lot of owners
Mhm.
that like I don't know how to do this and I don't want to pay a lot, so like hand it off to someone who says they can do it for me, and you probably fail a lot to start, but it'll give you a good entry point. So I would say just find areas where you can get started and get started. And then if you're performance or creative, like you make sure you're starting to understand the other side of it and get exposed to the other side of it. If you're then like in a job where you're a marketer and you're on either the performance or creative side, talk to the other side and ask them how they think and why they think, and don't just like silo yourself into your own department within marketing. Because if you're going to be a CMO, you're going to need to know the difference of how each side thinks and the dichotomy of how they work together. And so, yeah, that's what I'd say.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, that's good advice. Alright, so under kind of the mission stuff, did you always plan to go on a mission? Was it always part of your plans, or did you come to that decision somehow?
No, I don't know. I always kind of had a testimony, but I always had kind of rebellious streaks as well. I definitely went for the wrong reasons. I actually remember I was smoking a cigarette because I'd like picked up smoking for 2 weeks, like on my way to the bishop's interview to like get interviewed for my mission because I just wasn't taking it very serious. And I remember thinking, oh, I'll take my iPod with me, I'll hide it in my sock, and I'll run a headphone up my pants and into my ear. And while we're riding bikes, I'll listen to music. Like,
Yeah.
I just remember being very delusional about like how hard it would be and also very delusional about, like, how serious I would take it and how much I'd need to take it, but once I got into the MTC and you get entrenched in it and you start feeling the spirit and also when you start, like, going back to the break it down to me like it's like I'm a 5-year-old, in the MTC, they start breaking out the church like you're a 5-year-old, and you're like, "Oh, wait a minute, that actually makes a lot of logical sense." Like, I knew I'd heard all these elements before, but, like, at the MTC, they like, my testimony, that final piece locked in place of like, "Oh, Christ organized a church while he was on the earth, and then there was the Dark Ages, and then, like, the church is restored," and that just makes logical sense. And so, then it was like, "Okay, I'm in this." And then it clicked, and I was like, "'Kay, I'm here, and I'm gonna do this." But getting there was just I don't think I would have gone if it wasn't for a lot of pressure to go by the community in Utah and my parents expecting me to go.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Is like we talk about the pressure being a bad thing, and like you don't want to. It is. It's not great in some ways, but like as far as going for the wrong reasons, I think I'm kind of the mind that, like, if you can get out there anyway, and then you buy in when you're out there, I think a lot of kids think they have to be a certain level or they have to whatever before they can go, and I just really think it's like step 1, get out there. Step 2, figure out, why you're there, buy into it and figure it out, but rather
Yeah,
than, because I think a lot of people, I didn't have a very strong testimony either, right? Like, you learn it while you're out. That's the place where you kinda grow your belief and actually
for
test
sure.
what you believe, and to stop before you start and say, "Yeah, I'm doing this or that," or, I think you're gonna just hinder yourself if that's your mindset.
100%.
S
It's so cliche, and they say it all the time, but, like, you really are the greatest convert that comes out of your mission. I actually look
100%.
back on most of my baptisms, and they're inactive, and they didn't stick, and then I get a little discouraged, and then I remember, like, well, I had some experiences that I'll take with me the rest of my life and built my testimony in a way that is priceless.
Yeah.
I will say though, that, like, I like what you said, that the pressure isn't a bad thing because it typically is. I mean, we're not pressuring people to go out and do drugs. We're pressuring people to go
Mhm.
out and become better and do good things and preach good news and do service, you know? I will say though, one thing I had to kind of learn the hard way is my younger brother came home from his mission after I think like 2 months or maybe even less. And I still had that mindset of like, well, dude, like he came home from anxiety, and this was before I had really experienced my mental health struggles and was in the mental health world. And I was kind of a mental health denier. And I was just like, well, you're a wuss, dude. Like,
Mhm.
coming home from anxiety, like, come on, man. Like, you just are being a wuss, and you should have toughed it out. So I think the shift that needs to happen and the stigma around emission is there needs to be more grace for people that just say that's not for me. But also, I wish there was more just like, hey, go out and give it a try. Because if I didn't go out and just at least try, I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't have experienced what I experienced. And I just am so proud of my brother for trying it. And I'm not any less proud that he came home. Like, he went out and he tried it, and it just wasn't the right time, and it wasn't a good fit, and it sucks. It's almost like, okay, well, you came home, so that people kind of draw a line in the sand and say like, well, you just have this black mark on yourself
Yeah.
in the community of Utah,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah, no, it's true. I think it's a tough topic, but I agree with you that, like, give it a try. I used to serve in the priest quorum a few years ago, and I there were some priests that I think they're just scared, man, and I get it. Like, I get it, and they have it a lot worse than I do too, about being anxious or whatever, but you just never know, and you'll never know if you don't try, and so I think taking a leap and trying is well worth the risk. If you're gonna take a risk on anything, that might be the thing to jump for. So
Yeah.
so you were in Arcadia. Was it demographically poor, rich, some of both?
So I started in a place called Duarte, which was it. It's interesting. A lot of the towns across the foothills in LA, it's like there was the 210 freeway, and like around the 210 freeway was very impoverished, and then like the closer you got up towards the foothills and the mountains, just got like wealthier and wealthier and wealthier and wealthier. So it was like the houses at the top of the hill were just like mansions, and then the houses at the bottom of the hill were just dilapidated, and
Mhm.
people were living very rough conditions. And that was Duarte. Then I went into the valley, like by East LA, which was just all poor, Baldwin Park, which is actually where the first In and Out was created.
Mm.
And that was a rough neighborhood, man. I remember someone on drugs. I was on the phone with the mission president once, just outside in the front yard talking, and a lady on drugs just drove a car through like a fence of a house into the front yard, hops out of the car, and I look at her and I'm just like, president. Someone just ran into her house. I gotta go hang up. And then she runs off. The police come. She like took her hoodie off so that they wouldn't recognize her. Anyway, it's like that was a rough spot. And there was like mold. The place where we were staying was just mold infested. I remember looking in the window seal one night. I rolled over, looked in the window seal, and there's a brown recluse just dead upside down right by my face. And there, after I'd left, the elder that I had become friends with, because there was 4 of us staying, they called it a 4-pad. We both didn't love our companions. We both loved them. We didn't like them. Anyway, he contacted me after. He was like, hey, dude, I lifted up my mattress to move something, and there was a mushroom like this big under my bed. And in our shower, there was a like neon yellow mushroom growing out of the corner. It was just terrible. Not cool. But honestly, probably one of the funnest times of my life. And then after that, I got transferred to an area where I'm right by the largest Buddhist temple outside of China. And outside of I'm in a really wealthy guy's backyard in their casita. And as I'm studying, I can see Richard Gere and Angelina Jolie's house. So like I went from just poverty to like moving on up, like, and I stayed there for like 7.5 months. And then I went to like another suburb, but in that suburb, Snoop Dogg's gated community was there, and like his son played in the local football team. So it's just very diverse, is kind of what I'm getting at. Like,
Yeah.
you could literally go, like, each area was like 2 miles by 3 miles. One area was 1 mile by 1 mile. There was 6 million people on the mission, 8 different languages spoken that were like, people were called to 8 different languages. I was in a Korean ward at one point, and it's like you're in the States, but you feel like you're in a different country because all the signs are in a different language. So the diversity was just crazy, and I just loved it. The weather is beautiful. Yeah, it's a unique mission. It's actually kind of cool because you kind of get to experience a lot of different missions in one mission, you know?
Hmm. Well, yeah, the diversity. My sister was in the California mission too, and she talked about having family home evening in basically, a cardboard box or whatever, and then driving over to the same neighborhood as Kim Kardashian lives in for like dinner, at another member's house. And like, man,
Yeah.
what a cool thing to get that kind of perspective.
Yeah, for sure. It's wild.
A month ago or so, you posted a picture of yourself on your mission, told a story, obviously kind of drew me like a moth to a flame. That's what kind of attracts me at the moment. And it's a very great story. So would you mind telling that story?
Yeah. So it was my last area in my mission. I was going home with my companion. We were riding our bikes home at the end of the night. If you're familiar with the mission, it's usually lights out. Like, I can't remember. I think it's like 9:30, and it was like 9 o'clock. But I had this feeling. I was like, hey, let's check in on this guy. He was he was a veteran, come home and seen a lot of stuff in Iraq and had PTSD and was dealing with anxiety, depression. And I think he was going through a divorce, didn't have full custody of his kid. And so there's a lot going on in this guy's life. And he was a member of the church, but hadn't attended in a long time, but had reached out, and we started just kind of trying to fellowship him back in. So 9 o'clock, bedtime's 9:30, like, we need to get home, but I had this feeling that we need to stop by and talk to him and just see how he's doing. So we knock on the door. He says, oh, hey guys, come on in. We chat for a bit, pretty normal conversation. I remember Imagine Dragons had just come out with, I think the song's called Demons, or like, it's like, That's Where My Demons Hide is how the song goes. And there's actually a guy in a military uniform, like I think overseas, and in the music video, and he showed us, and he was talking about how he related to this new Imagine Dragons song. And of course, I'm on my mission. I haven't heard good music in a long time, so I'm just like, oh, that song is incredible.
Yeah.
But anyway, we just chatted, and then, after maybe 20 minutes, we just said, okay, talk to you later. And as we're walking out the door, he says, hey, wait up a sec. And he holds out his hand, I hold out my hand. He drops a 9 millimeter bullet in my hand, and he says, "Right before you guys knocked on my door, the bullet had my name on it." I don't know if it totally registered at the time, but I took the bullet, kept it, and we went home.
Yeah, I mean, it's a powerful story. Those kind of experiences happen more than you'd think they would on a mission. Not necessarily exactly the same, right? But um, things that you're not exposed to, I don't know how you'd be exposed to them as a 18 or 19, 20-year-old kid any other place.
Yeah, yeah. And it seems like I had a lot of those experiences towards the tail end of my mission. Like maybe finally I was ready to start experiencing them or something, or maybe I'd kind of started to figure out that you actually can ask God for things and he'll give them to you and he'll perform miracles to make them happen. In that same area, within weeks of this happening, I was coming towards the end of my mission and I knew it. And I was like, "Oh, man, I really want a family to teach and baptize." I was riding my bike down a road in Arcadia. And so I don't know if you got this in where you were at, but like you just kind of, because you're out and about and on the streets, like you kind of get propositioned a lot for money, or there's a
All kinds
sob
of
story
things.
of like, or it's like, "Hey, I have this thing and blah, blah, blah." And I always found that like the more intricate the story, the faker it was. Like it was like, so this guy stops me. He's like, "Hey, I was supposed to get on this bus and we were going to here, and my mom is in a home, and I was supposed to be able to get $50 to be able to get to her, or else they were going to kick her out of the home." And like, it was just this very intricate story about how this
Yeah.
guy needed $50. And I was like, "No, like, dude, I'm not going to give you
Yeah.
$50. I'm
Yeah.
living on $160 a month right now myself." And I'm about to bike away. And then I thought, and I asked God, I said, "Okay, I'll give this guy $50, but in exchange for $50 for this guy,
Yeah.
I want to teach and baptize a family before I go home." And I felt good about it. I felt like God said, "Okay, bet." So I was like, I said, "Hey, stay exactly where you are." You're just sitting under a tree. I was like, "Stay there." And I biked, however many blocks away the bank was, and I pulled out $50 out of my personal account, which I actually didn't, I hoped I had enough money in there. My mom would kind of take sympathy on me sometimes and toss some
Yeah.
money in. And so I pulled $50 out, bike back to him, hand him the $50. I can't remember his reaction at all, but and then we biked away, forgot about it. It's the next morning. So it was actually less than 24 hours later. I get a buzz on our missionary cell phone, and it was a referral from Temple Square, because like some people will put in names to go contact their local missionaries to talk to. And it was this guy. We followed up on the referral. We went and talked to him. It was this really nice family, and he had been taught the gospel from a coworker. And we started teaching him, and we felt the Spirit really strongly. And I was kind of suspicious because of how easy it all was. And I was like,
Mhm. Something's
"Hey,
wrong,
man."
something's off.
He even at one point he was like, "Hey, I feel like you're kind of skeptical of like me believing this," but he was like, "We're gold, man." Like he's like, he's like, "I think I've heard the phrase like golden investigator. We are a golden investigator."
You're like,
And I was
"Stop it,
like,
stop it
"Oh,"
already."
I was like, "Wow, that $50, like that's the best $50 I've ever spent." And they got baptized. I actually left, and then they got baptized like 2 weeks after I'd left. But it was like it was a family just handed to me on a silver platter, and I was like, "That's awesome." But I get home from my mission, and I tell my mom that story, and she stops like she's seen a ghost, and she was like, "Wait, when was this?" And I explained when it was. My mom had felt a prompting from the Spirit to put $50 into my account the day of or day before that I did this thing.
Wow, that's amazing. It's a really cool story.
I just get chills thinking about it.
Yeah,
It's
it's
those things
awesome.
where it's like it's too coincidental to to ever ignore,
Yeah. Well, it's such a great faith promoting experience for you, right? To you take a leap, you get to take a leap, but then you get to experience the downstream of, okay, I took a leap of faith, I exercised my faith, and now, oh, I get somebody to teach. And then after that, oh, wow, my mom had this, coincidental, right, prompting to do this too. It's just it's nice that you
And
get to
the
see the faith
exact
action of
amount,
faith pay
like,
off. Yeah, right. Really, really
uh,
cool, really crazy. Again, I just think it's really hard for anybody not put in a situation like a mission to get to have those kind of experiences, which you get to use in reference back. There's lessons and things you can draw from those experiences, right? So one is faith and God working it by your faith. The one that you pulled out from the first story is, you know, be kind to people. You don't always know what effect that's going to have. I just think if I were 18 or 19 and I wasn't forced to be out on the street outside all the time doing hard things, I wouldn't be. I'd be at home watching TV, or like I'd be at college watching TV. It's like
yeah.
I wouldn't be having these things that you can then carry with you for the rest of your life. So I think it's such a valuable time in a young person's life.
Yeah. I will say, I don't want to contradict you, but there's I think the experiences are condensed on the mission,
Hmm.
but I think I remember being in college. I was at Salt Lake Community College before my mission, and I'd always paid tithing, and I wasn't making much money, and I was paying my way through my own school. And I was in the marketing club called DECA, and my professor was also like the DECA counselor or whatever. Like there was a few DECA professors over the club, and I owed tithing, and it was the amount that was in my bank account. So I drained my bank account literally to zero in order to pay tithing. And I was like, man, I don't know. Like, I'm not going to get paid for a while. So, like 2 weeks or whatever. So, I don't know how I'm going to fill my car with gas to drive to school or to work, or how I'm going to pay for lunches and food and stuff. I was living at home, so it wasn't too big of a worry, but I was like, I literally have no money in my account. Like, I'm going to have to go begging to my parents if I need more money.
Mhm.
So I paid the tithing anyway and just thought, it'll work out. I go to class, and my marketing professor, who's also in DECA, hands me an envelope and says, "Hey, you overpaid on something for one of the DECA things." And I opened the envelope, and it was the exact amount within a few cents. It was like, I remember it was like $263.38, and what I had just paid in tithing was like $263, and
Hmm.
I can't remember if there was any cents, but dude, like you can have those experiences. I think life just kind of has to force you into certain situations. The other one was my daughter needed a cochlear implant. This would have been 2022. My daughter needed a cochlear implant because she's deaf. And not that she needs it, but the ability to hear is crucial. But we only had a year to get it done because we were on a certain insurance, and we had gone through 3 appeals with our insurance throughout the year. December rolls around, we have one more appeal. So the rule is once you appeal 3 times to the insurance, you get to then appeal it to the state. So finally we get to appeal it to the state. My wife's calling all the time and trying to follow up. They assure us that it's in the process. And we're like, hey, it's the end of the year, and our insurance is going to change at the end of the year, and we're going to have to go through all this again with the next insurance company. So it would be another year of just fighting with insurance to try to get it covered, and we'd lose all the traction of fighting with this insurance. And I remember I put on LinkedIn, hey guys, I don't know if this is appropriate for LinkedIn, but if you guys could say a prayer for my daughter to get her cochlear implant, that would just be super helpful. And I think that got like 200,000 views, and so tons of people were praying for us. But what was crazy is it was coming down to the wire. It was like December 18th, and the last day we could possibly do it was like December 21st, because the doctor was going out of town for Christmas for the rest of the year on the 22nd. And so it was like we had till like the 21st was when it had to happen. And so my wife calls on the Friday before, which would have been what, like the 17th or whatever it is, and says, like, I'm just asking one more time, like, did you do everything correctly to like the state rep? And it turned out she made a mistake and we kind of caught her on it. And then once we caught her on it, and I think we like ended up talking to her boss, and her boss got involved and they fixed it. And then all of a sudden it's the 20th, and the 21st is the last day. We get a call on the 20th at 4 o'clock, 4 p.m. on the 20th. We get a call from the insurance saying, hey, the state's going to make us pay for this. And of course they were all congratulatory, like, hey, we decided we are going to pay for your daughter's cochlear implant.
Yeah. Great.
But so we have an hour until it's 5 o'clock and people start leaving to coordinate the surgery for the next day. So my wife starts calling everyone. The doctor's like, okay, I'll squeeze the surgery in tomorrow. And my daughter also has von Willebrand's disease, and we needed a certain type of platelets that she needed, or else she couldn't have surgery. And for some reason, there was some left over at the hospital. So that was all taken care of. Like, just perfect miracle, nick of time. We were able to get her in. And so I don't know, man. I think miracles are far and in between, but still happen. I just, like, in your mission, it's almost like you can experience them like once a week because you're like so involved in it.
No, I agree with that totally. I think you're right. Like, of course, they happen in the normal course of life, but I think you tend to ask for them more on your mission because you're so involved in so many more things. And it's a nice, kind of like we said before, it's nice because it lays a groundwork where you might understand in what situations you ask for help or how to recognize them, like, later on in life. At least it has for me. So yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, I love that. Sorry if that came across rude on disagreeing that miracles happen outside of the mission. I get what you were saying. I get what you're saying, though, that like it really is a petri dish for 19-year-olds to experience miracles that they wouldn't have experienced. And so
I think that's exactly what it is. I think like, yeah, I use the phrase the laboratory, right? A petri dish is a good one, but it's just where like you run experiments, and like the point is you're experimenting. And real life, of course you have those experiences, but they're harder to come by in my own experience anyway, because you're just not as focused.
They're years apart, where in missions it can be days apart or weeks apart.
Yeah, I mean, I really I admire converts a lot because I don't think I ever could have been a convert. I just think like I don't think I would have. And honestly, I admire people who haven't served missions, who are strong in the gospel and their gospel knowledge, because I don't know how I would have done it and tried to come to an actual understanding or some place that I'm content with in my understanding of the church without having gone on a mission. It's just like, it's very, very hard, in my opinion, for myself. I guess I can really only speak for myself. It's very hard to focus the right kind of way outside of the mission that you would need to say, okay, yeah, I'm going to read the Book of Mormon start to finish, and actually ponder it and think about it, or I'm going to apply X, Y, or Z principles and see what benefit they have. I just know that I wouldn't have done it if I hadn't been forced to do it.
Yeah.
So cool. So last two questions. First question is, what would you say the top one or two secular things that you learned from your mission, if there's any secular, non-spiritual kind of lessons?
So I didn't knock doors on my mission. And that was just me being a realistic human being and saying, like, how am I going to, like, I'm going to go knock on these doors in California and like expect to teach people? Like, and you look at the statistics of knocking doors and it's like, it's 1 in 1,000.
Yeah.
So I was like, hold on a sec. I've got an area book that has part member families and inactive families that I can just go visit and activate. Like, why am I going out and I'm doing all this prospecting and busting my butt when it's like I've got this area book of warm leads? So I take that I think about that in sales and in business, where if you're D2C, it's like building your email list is where you can grow your business. You don't have to go find new customers. Or if you're in sales, like, why are you going out and finding new leads when there's warm leads in your CRM? Like, an area book is a CRM, and like, you're learning to be a salesperson. Or why are you going out and finding new customers when you should be focusing on making sure customers and that your customers are happy. And a lot of the times you can even make more money out of existing customers. So things like that, where it's like, take the knocking doors portion of that. Like right now, it's like me saying, hey, we're just going to like blast out cold emails to everybody and hope we find prospects. But instead, I'm like, no. I'm going to go and find partnerships with people that have the customers that I want. And maybe I have value that I can provide them, and I'm going to build a partnership, and we're going to feed each other warm leads. Or I'm going to take a group of e-commerce founders out to dinner, and I'm going to get to know them a little bit better. And then they're going to be much more likely to listen to me when I pitch them than if I just sent them a cold email and they had nothing to do with me and they didn't know who I was. So I think you can take prospecting principles really well from a mission into business.
I think that's a great one. I mean, it's creating real, authentic relationships with people, and you're not going to trick anybody into, you shouldn't, you're not going to trick anybody into the gospel, right? And you're not trying to trick anybody into buying what you have, but it's building a relationship of trust and truly caring about somebody, and, they can then see what you value, and like you said, you can help each other both ways. So I think that's a great one. Last question. You got a 17-year-old kid, 18-year-old kid, doesn't really know for sure if he wants to go on a mission yet. What advice would you give to that kid who's considering going, not really sure?
I would say you owe it to yourself to give it a chance. And you run the risk of going and leaving and coming home early. But to be completely frank, there's a stigma about not going and there's a stigma about coming home early. So either way, you're going to be dealing with stigma. That just is what it is. Like, people suck. So don't think like, oh, if I go and come home early, I'm going to get shamed. Frankly, if you don't go, you're going to get shamed. And that's just the harsh reality of people being human and being poopy. So I would just say you owe it to yourself to at least try. And the worst that can happen is that you build and you grow. And regardless of whether you're going to believe in the gospel or not in this life, growth is the only true asset that we have in this life. And so you owe it to yourself to try.
That's awesome. Okay, man. Well, thank you. I've only followed you for a short time, but I've appreciated seeing your posts on LinkedIn, and I know there's a lot of people in the Utah community, especially, who really look up to you. So thank you for your time and for sharing the stories you did and your insights.
Yeah, I love that you're doing this, and I appreciate it. It's nice. Spiritually fulfilling things are much better than the business fulfilling things. This filled my spiritual cup, and I appreciate it.
I appreciate that, man. Okay, well, I'll let you get going, but thanks again.
Yeah, thanks so much, man.
Okay, man. We'll talk to you later. Okay. Levi's a good guy. He said that was the third podcast he'd filmed today. So he's obviously a guy that's in pretty high demand, which I think speaks a lot to his character, that he would in the first place respond to me. There's some unknown person messaging him on LinkedIn to ask for an interview, and then ultimately to follow through late on a Friday afternoon when it had been pretty easy to just kind of blow me off. So anyway, high character guy. Classy guy. A couple of points that I really liked from what he said. He talked about the value of creating true, authentic relationships and how that extends to his job today. That's a good point. When you're on a mission, you're really just trying to be friendly with everybody that you come in contact with. And you believe that if they want it, you can help them to improve their own satisfaction and state in life. And likewise, you believe that they can help you in return. It's never a one-way road, and there's nothing duplicitous or deceptive about this type of relationship. I think it's a really good model to have for building relationships throughout the entirety of our lives, and you get a lot of really great practice to do that on a mission. So, I thought that was a great point. Also really like the advice to just give it a try. Even if you're hesitant or questioning about it, like you said, you kind of owe it to yourself to try, and it's possible that it won't be for you, won't be a great fit. But alternatively, it might be a great fit and it could change your life. And so I think it's one thing that's really worth giving a try. The way I've thought about it, it's kind of a one size fits most thing, where there's probably some instances where there could be a better path from a purely developmental perspective for certain individuals than the mission structure and format. But I'd say that those cases are pretty rare, more the exception than the rule. They don't do everything for everyone, but for the vast majority of young people, I'd say they're almost certainly the best available option. So, anyway, that wraps it up. Thanks again to Levi for his time and insights. Thanks to Jake for producing, and thanks to everybody who listens. I get texts with some kind words after I release new episodes, and I appreciate that encouragement. And if you like the podcast and if you've made it this far, please consider sharing this with someone you think could benefit from what we're talking about here. So, we're back in 2 weeks with another good episode. So, until then, so long.